Thank you. Obviously, I'm not Dr. Dean. I certainly appreciate his role in this and appreciate his leadership as chair and all the other chairs that are in this room and previous chairs to the Board of Education. So I have a great appreciation for the leadership of those people, and thank you to him for taking on that role. But I am Buddy Bailey. I'm the vice chair, and I'll be conducting the meeting this morning. I'd like to remind you to silence all your cell phones, and also a reminder that the board being live streamed today. Recognition of a couple of people. Shelby Dean, our student representative, is here for the first time, and let's give her a round of applause. Glad to have you, Shelby, and look so forward to your input from the state board perspective for all voice of all students. Omar couldn't be with us today. He is at the Summer Institute at Harvard, which glad, and he's got a time up there, and obviously we picked well. Shelby's been going through orientation this week with some of the staff here at MDE and Mississippi Board Association, and so we're really proud of you two guys. Thank you for being here, and thank you for going through the process that you went through to be here. So we look forward to your input. This morning I've asked Ms. Brittany Rye to do the flag, and Ms. Rosemary Altman to do the invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you join me in prayer, please? Our Father, we thank you for another day of life. We thank you for watching over us and caring for us, and we thank you for giving us the opportunity to serve. We pray for those, Lord, throughout our state who have chosen to serve, whether it's in public office or whether it's teaching young people or whether it's being active in their community. For it is because of those who have a sense of responsibility and a caring and loving spirit that we enjoy the quality of life that we have. We thank you for the people who are serving around the world, who protect us and who help us, that we are able to meet it like this and to enjoy the freedoms that we have. We ask your blessings on this meeting. We ask you to give us wisdom and guidance as we make these decisions, and we pray that everything that we do will bring glory to you. In thy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan, Ms. Altman. Next is approval of minutes of the June 12th special called board meeting and the minutes of the June 13th board meeting. Would I have a motion to approve those?
I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next is approval of the agenda. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? And if so, we'll entertain a motion to do so now.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that members would like to pull out for discussion? If so, we'll entertain a motion to do that. I'd like to entertain a motion to pull out D on the consent agenda.
Here, I'll make that motion for you.
Second to that? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I believe that will move to item 10. Is that correct? And then consent agenda will become 11. Okay. I believe that we'll need a vote to approve the new agenda.
I so move. So move.
All in favor? Aye. Recognition ceremony, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Wright.
Morning.
Bailey, Dr. Wright, and board members, it is now my honor to present to you the board recognitions for the month of July. An important purpose of this monthly recognition ceremony is to celebrate and to congratulate students, teachers, and school leaders who are shining examples of achievement in public education. Today, we honor 2 school districts for exemplary inclusion programs. Based on law, students with disabilities must have access to education and extracurricular activities with their general education peers to the maximum extent possible. This results in educational benefits for all students. Based upon entries received by the Office of Special Education, recognition is given to schools each year for embracing this ideal. The State Special Education Advisory Panel has selected Magnolia Park Elementary from Ocean Springs School District and Pass Christian High School from the Pass Christian School District to be honored for their commitment to providing an inclusive environment for students with appropriate supports and services. At this time, I will ask Dr. Benita Coleman and the leadership team representing Ocean Springs to come forward and join Mr. Bailey and Dr. Wright at the front of the room. Thank you for providing a school climate that celebrates and encourages an inclusive environment for all students. The district has received this recognition in years past, and this year's honor proves the school's leaders' ongoing commitment to meeting all children's needs. Thank you, Dr. Coleman, and the leadership in Ocean Springs. You are welcome to make remarks at this time. Thank you. Next, I invite Dr. Carla Evers and the leadership team representing Pass Christian to come to the front of the room. The Special Education Advisory Panel was impressed by your teamwork in providing opportunities for all students to achieve their goals. Thank you for understanding and appreciating the benefits of inclusive practices in your schools. You are welcome to make remarks. Thank you. Our July Employee of the Month could not be with us today, so we will reserve her recognition until next month's board meeting. This concludes our board recognitions.
Bailey, help me. Are these two districts both from the Gulf Coast?
I don't think you need much help in answering that. But congratulations to you. Outstanding work. I believe we're ready for the report of the state superintendent.
Well, good morning. A couple of things that I wanted to bring to your attention. I attended the Southern Regional Education Board, or SREB. You hear those phrases a lot. Their annual meeting and legislative work conference, and there were a number of legislators there. This is a 16-member organization starting with the state of Maryland, kind of coming down the coast and encompassing Kentucky, Tennessee, on around to Louisiana. So that's a pretty big swath of the country. And they do a lot about looking at specific data points with each state. So we've got a lot of feedback, and I'm going to bring that to you when I put the packet all together. Around workforce development, this was a key theme at SREB this year. And it was interesting to see how different legislators across this region have taken this up. Many have passed legislation around it. So there's more to come, and I think, Mr. Suggs, this will be perfect, for your subcommittee and the work that we're, as you well know, that we're doing around workforce development. I had the privilege of speaking at the Elevate the Teachers Conference. That was awesome. I'm not going to be the spoiler, but I'm telling you that you're in for a treat when we share with you in August what we shared with them last week. We wanted to make sure that you're aware of our campaign that we are on around elevating teachers and also trying to get more teachers into the profession, whether they start in high school or college or they're changing careers. And so you'll hear a lot more about that in August. I also just attended the Education Commission of the State's National Forum on Education Policy that was held in Denver. As you know, that our governor has been the chair of that for the past 2 years, and then the gavel was now passed to the governor of Pennsylvania. It's always chaired by a governor, or they bounce between Republican and Democrat, and that was a well-attended conference as well. And they're always talking about policy issues around the nation that impact what's actually happening in schools and districts, and so that's always of benefit. And I also want to give some special recognition to our communications team. So that's Pete Smith, Patrice Guilfoyle, and Jean Cook, and Corey, our new addition to our communications team. But they applied for the first time, if I'm not misunderstanding, right? This was the first time. Where's Jean or Patrice? First time, yep. So they've been applying for state and regional kinds of awards, but this was the first time they've ever applied for a national award with the National School Public Relations Association, and they won 3 Golden Achievement Awards for crisis communications, for campaigns promoting the Mississippi Succeeds report card, and for their campaign around the diploma endorsement options. And according to the National Association, the Golden Achievement Award recognizes exemplary work in all aspects of school public relations, communication, marketing, and engagement. So hats off to our communications team for national awards. At this time, I want to introduce the superintendent from the Mississippi Achievement School District, Dr. Jamal Wright, and I'm going to ask him to come up. I've asked him to provide you with an overview of what's happening with our Achievement School District, and under his leadership, I can tell you that this young man went through quite a rigorous interview process. I think you'd say that's probably true, would you not? Yes, exactly. And was just really the shining star. And so we've got tremendous confidence in Dr. Wright, and I want to give him an opportunity to talk to you about what's happening thus far and go from there. And I know you've got it. Your PowerPoint, by the way, board members, is in your blue folder. And if you look on the left-hand column, this will be the PowerPoint that you're going to be following that he's got. And you need, we need somebody to key that up for him. Did you do that, Tim? Jamal, let me see if, Tamlet, how about if I just send you from, myself? Sorry.
I'll go ahead and
Yeah, go ahead and get started while I'm finding this.
Bailey, Dr. Wright, members of the board. Happy to be here with you this morning to give you an update with regards to things that are happening with the Mississippi Achievement School District. Today marks 2 months and 3 days since I have officially been here. Those 2 months and 3 days feels like 2 years, will be saying it lightly. We have been having a great fun time trying to put things together to make sure that when students and teachers show up to school this upcoming school year, that we will be ready to rock and roll. And so if you look to the second page of your PowerPoint, there are a couple of bullet points that I want to address with you this morning. And so we'll start off with just talking about how we have introduced the concept of the Mississippi Achievement School District to the communities in which we're currently serving in Yazoo and in Humphreys County. And then we'll talk about some of the decisions that we've made thus far in these 2 months. And then I'll share with you our implementation plan for year one. And then at the end of the presentation, there will be time for you to ask questions if you so have any, and feel free to ask any questions that you may have in between the presentation. So on the second page, you see, it says, what is the Achievement School District? And before I officially started on May 15th, we hosted 3 community meetings, 2 of which were in Humphreys County, one in Louise, Mississippi, and the other in Belzoni/Belzona. I keep being told it's pronounced 2 different ways, and so at this point, I don't know how to say it, so every time I say it, I just say it both ways. And then we also hosted a community meeting in Yazoo. And in those meetings, we just really wanted to share with the community the rationale behind the move. We wanted the community to have a chance to understand and know a little bit about me, what our plans were for the district, and to kind of dispel a lot of the rumors that was negatively affecting some of the folks' beliefs about what we were attempting to do within the communities. And so I can tell you that I have been thoroughly surprised and happy with the feedback that we have received from folks within the community. By and large and overwhelmingly, folks have embraced this decision and this move, and have joined alongside of us to correct some of the things that need to be corrected in both of the systems. And so I'm happy to say that we do have an overwhelmingly majority of support from our community in this work. And so one of the things that we have said to them is that we have outlawed the term state takeover. And so no one is allowed to use that term, because it's not a state takeover. And it's really an opportunity for us to define and redefine and recreate some experiences that we believe will improve the outcomes for the students and families in which we serve. So on the next page of your PowerPoint, it says, how will the ASD work? And so we have communicated to our communities and to our employees within the community that we are operating as one district. We are 2 campuses or 2 regions, but we are operating conceptually as one district. One of the first decisions that we had to make is to decide how we were going to support the work in the Mississippi Achievement School District. And so the next slide, the next one, shows you our org structure. And so currently right now we have, in addition to the Office of the Superintendent, we have 3 major divisions within the Mississippi Achievement School District: the Division of Academics, Division of Operations, and Finance and Business Affairs. And you see the functions that are associated with those divisions on the org chart that you have in front of you. Some additional decisions that we made right off the back was to deal with an issue that was occurring in Humphreys County. And so if you look at the red box, it kind of shows you what the former configuration of schools were in the Humphreys County School District. We had 4 schools. You see them listed there in red. One of the issues with Humphreys County Junior High is that it is basically a wing of the high school. And so they share the cafeteria with the high school. They share the gym with the high school. They do not have a library, and the incoming sixth grade class of Humphreys County Junior High was very large, and it was going to create a lot of overcrowding within Humphreys County Junior High. The good news is that in Ida Green, that used to house K2, which is the newest building within Humphreys County, had quite a bit of extra space and room. And so we decided to consolidate. We closed Humphreys County Junior High School. We made Ida Green, we moved them from K2 to K4. And then O.M. McNair, which was the historic high school in Humphreys County, which was a high school that African Americans attended, that has a lot of community support, a lot of community involvement, and they were thrilled and overwhelmed with making O.M. McNair the middle school for Humphreys County, which will house grades 5 through 8. That particular building has a full-fledged gym, cafeteria, all the facilities that the junior high school did not have in their former building. And so we've gone ahead and made that move happen, so that when students come back on August 6th, there will be August 7th, I'm sorry, there will be 3 schools in Humphreys County: Humphreys County High School, O.M. McNair Middle School, and Ida Green Elementary School. This slide represents some of the operational consolidations and alignments that we have made to make it easier for us to operate as one district. And so I'm not going to talk about each one of them, but I will say I'm very happy about some of the alignment work that we were able to pull off in such a short period of time, mainly with our teacher salaries. And so the supplements were different in both places, but we were able to align those so that regardless of what region of the district you're working in, teacher salaries are the same, along with some of the other things that you see highlighted on that particular slide. In terms of our office, this may take folks a bit of time to kind of get used to, but we are, our offices are aligned to our org structure. And so basically everything from the superintendent's office and business administration, we are housed in the former Yazoo City School District, their central office building. Everyone in our academic division is housed in Humphreys County in the former junior high wing. We have, in addition to the offices, we have about 5 classrooms that we have converted to be our professional development classrooms that will be used to conduct the trainings, the various trainings and professional learnings that we will have for our employees. And then everything in our operations division is located in the Humphreys campus, the former central office building. With regards to facilities, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we are currently reviewing proposals for a comprehensive facility studies for both campuses. There are quite a number of facility challenges in both places, and so we will begin the work of just trying to prioritize how we are going to deal with some of the facility needs that we know we need to address. But then there were some priority items, some extremely urgent items that we needed to address right away. And so some of those bullet points that you see referenced here are things that we are already underway with trying to complete. Most of these will be completed prior to day 1 of school, with the exception of replacing the roof at Humphreys High School. That project will probably run until the end of September. With regards to our teacher shortage dilemma, when I first came, we had about, between both regions, about 90 teacher vacancies, which was very overwhelming. When I first came, it was quite a bit. And I think in one of our districts, they had gone pretty much the whole year last year with probably almost close to probably 60% of their teacher vacancies filled. And so there were a lot of vacancies in one of the particular areas. And so I definitely want to give a shout out to Ms. McCormack and Mr. Moss here at MDE, who has worked with us tirelessly to get our folks credentialed, to help us with recruitment. And so we are currently down to about 37 vacancies left in Yazoo. And this was last week. And so I know some of these numbers have gone down, but we still have quite a ways to go. But we have made more than tremendous progress in these 2.5 months trying to deal with our teacher shortage dilemma. Just in case we are not able to fill all of these vacancies by day 1, we have aligned start times, school start times and end times in both places. And so we are implementing a distance learning and virtual learning strategy in the areas in which we are not able to have certified teachers. So if we have a certified English teacher at the high school, we're currently wiring these campuses so that we are able to stream classes across both campuses and align schedules so that we won't have a student who won't have some sort of certified teacher by day one. So the next couple of slides are going to address our plans for implementation in our first year. And so at the bottom of that slide, you see two components, core instruction and organizational culture. Those are the two aspects or the two components in which we are aligning all of our work in year one. And so we aren't coming in with a list of immediate and automatic changes that we are making right off the bat. We really want to take our time this year to learn as much as we can about things that are happening, current practices, and really make sure that we identify the correct root causes before we address specific strategies in which we will implement. But if you flip the slide, this slide is just it illustrates the PELP framework, which is a framework that we are using, Public Education Leadership Project out of Harvard. It's really a framework that describes the complex nature of systems change and systems reform. In the middle of that framework, you see our core business, which is teaching and learning, represented by the instructional core. But it also details and illustrates that changing things related to the instructional core is impacted by many other things in which we have to give attention to just as much as we do teaching and learning. And so one of the core beliefs or philosophical beliefs that's guiding our work in year one is that we really want to have an intense focus on core or tier one instruction. And so oftentimes in situations where you have an overwhelming number of students who are not meeting grade level expectations, you have an overemphasis on interventions and pullouts and programs, and we just believe that that's not going to reach the majority of students who need to be reached in terms of really addressing some of the academic deficiencies in which we have. And so there will be an overemphasis on making sure that our core and our tier one instruction is strong across the system. And so in order to do that, one of the strategies that we are implementing in our first year is to conduct a district-wide teaching and learning systems audit. This audit has already been scheduled for the 26th through the 28th of August. And so we will have a team of individuals in our district really taking a deep dive and a deep look into all of the aspects that make up systems of teaching and learning within our district. And you see those illustrated here. Along with the audit on teaching and learning, we will also be conducting an audit of student engagement at the same time. And so not only do we want to look at systems associated with teaching and learning, we also want to look at how our students are responding to things within our district. And so we'll be looking at analyzing work samples, disaggregating and looking at student data, having focus groups with our students, really getting their perspective on their experiences within the district as well. With regards to our professional learning plan, we actually are in Institute right now. We started on Tuesday of this week, and Tuesday was the first day that we brought together all of our district and school level leaders together in one room, some of which I met for the very first time because they were just hired last week. And so exciting time to finally have everyone together at one time. But in terms of our professional learning plan for the upcoming school year, it's really curriculum agnostic. And when I say curriculum agnostic, we know we have to do some work in really learning more about some of the things that have been used in the district. And so while we aren't at the place where we can make changes to the curriculum right now because we didn't have a lot of time to do that and have that prepared and roll that out, to be able to roll that out to teachers prior to them returning in the next few days, we want to make sure that we introduce instructional practices throughout our district that can be used across content areas. And so our professional learning plan this year, and if you can go on to the next slide, really will be focused on these instructional practices that are not content dependent. And so even as yesterday, we had some deep discussion around these things. And so it may not be all of the ones that you see here. The intent here was to introduce one a month But after having some conversation with the team on yesterday, we may make some modifications to this to give us some time to make sure that whatever practices that we do choose, that we have the structures necessary to make sure that we provide the support once they're introduced, to make sure that they are cemented within our district prior to us moving on to the next one. So early literacy has to be a priority in our plan, and so I should have took that, or somebody else. That was supposed
I think that's what everybody's kind of chuckling about.
I
Well, we
didn't-
hope it's with MDE, Dr. Wright.
Well, we have been having conversations with so many different people. That should have been, yeah. All right, so, okay, yeah, we will be partnering with someone with regards to our early literacy plan development. Moving on to the next one. Yeah. So those are some of the things that we will be doing this first year around core and Tier 1 instruction. Next, we're going to shift to things that we will be implementing this year to address organizational culture. And I do want to say that these two components, although they appear separately, it is not our belief that you do one before the other. We believe that you do both simultaneously. So I want to make sure that it's clear that we're not saying we're doing instruction and then we're going to focus on culture. There's an interplay between both, and both of these things will happen simultaneously. Go to the next one. And this is just a little graphic that I use often that it simply says organizational culture, eat strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it's just to say that your best plan won't produce much of anything until you address culture within any organization. And because of the situation associated with the creation of the Mississippi Achievement School District, we know that we have to take some time to be really intentional about making sure that we address culture within our organization with both our internal and our external stakeholders. And so some of the things that we will be doing for year one to address organizational culture includes internal and external stakeholder listening and learning sessions. They have already been scheduled for the fall, and so we will be facilitating conversations with both our employees and our community with regards to what are some of the things that they really want to see happen within the schools, within their community. We really want to take the time to hear from our stakeholders, to learn what it is that they want to see, to get feedback and information from them that can help us drive a strategic plan that will eventually be created once we collect all of the data that we need to, in order to do so. The next bullet item, go back to the other slide. One of the things that we know we have to do is really focus on the heart of our employees, really being clear about the moral imperative for our work. And so we are planning to have monthly sessions, and these aren't mandatory, but we will have monthly sessions where members of our community and our employees can just come and we can have conversation about why this work is so important. And so we will kick this off with our convocation on August 1st with one of our keynote speakers that will really be talking about unconscious bias and equity, and then really focusing on us as individuals, making sure that we are healthy and really prepared to do this work so that we're able to give 100% of ourselves each and every single day. We know that in order to do this work, we have to have a motivated workforce, and so we will be implementing a comprehensive employee recognition strategy to make sure that our folks know that they're valued, to make sure that they know that they are appreciated, and really highlighting some of the strong work that many of our employees are already engaged in. Believe it or not, we have folks who are literally working in some cases all day and all night. And I have really been encouraged and scared by the time in which many folks are dedicating to our work, making sure that we are getting off to the right foot. And then, of course, community engagement. And the last bullet point, I believe, for organizational culture are the multiple advisory groups in which myself will be interacting with every single month. You can go to the next slide. And so we have already launched one of these groups, our student advisory group. That group was launched at the end of last school year. So we put out applications for students who are interested in serving on the advisory council. We met with them once at the end of the year, and then we've already met with them once throughout the summer. They are a high energy, engaged group of students who have a lot to say about their experiences thus far, and have a whole lot to say about things that they want to see happen within their schools and within the school district. And we're really taking the feedback that we're getting from them very seriously. I was going to say I made the mistake, but I did give them all my contact information. And I don't think it's a day that doesn't go by that I don't get a text or a phone call about something. And so we're definitely excited about this group and what they will bring, the voice that they're bringing to the work in which we're doing. And then the others are represented, the other groups that we will have are represented here. That is it. So, not sure if there are questions.
Question, Dr. Wright, about your facility plan. You had indicated you brought somebody in to kind of do an audit of that.
So we have one proposal that we are looking at right now. We are looking for some additional proposals for folks to actually do the study.
And from what you've been able to understand about the budget of the district, funds are there to actually correct what perhaps needs to be done? Or will you have to go and find the money after you identify the need?
It's a very good question. I think in one of our regions, I feel pretty good about the budget situation, that it will be able to address some of the needs that we have. In the other region, I'm not quite sure at this moment. And so we're still working through quite a bit to make sure that we have a clear picture in terms of what we have.
I'm just curious, what approximately percentage of your faculty were retained from prior to your arrival and they're still there?
So,
Like, is it 50% or 75%?
So I did not, in the short time that I've been here, I have not had the time to engage with classroom teachers. And so any classroom teachers that chose not to return with us, they did so at their own volition. We didn't have much of a time to really interact with many of the classroom teachers.
Buying into these changes, these
So far, so good.
improvements, excuse me.
So far, so good.
Same question for administrators. What about your administrators, principals?
So we have,
Things there.
so in Yazoo, each of the schools will have a new principal. Some of them were already in the district and just moved to a different school, but every school will have a new principal in the upcoming school year. In Humphreys, all those principals are still the same, except for Humphreys County High School. They do have a new principal.
Outstanding presentation, by the way, and the strategic thinking way, and really applaud you for thinking about the organizational culture. That's got to be your foundation and building blocks. So thanks for making this happen. This looks really good. My question, you mentioned something earlier about bridging the gap with the lack of teachers and using distant learning and online. Have those systems been proved out that they will work, or is it an ideal state yet still?
For me, I would say it's not an ideal state. They've never streamed classes from one school to another, and so this will be the first attempt to try to do so. They have used Edgenuity and some other companies to provide online courses in the past, and so the difference between what was done in the past and now is we are using the actual teacher version of Edgenuity. And so in the past, they have a version to where you can have a facilitator in the classroom and the kids complete the modules, self-paced, they complete the modules, but we will have an actual teacher who will look at the student work to be able to give feedback to the students, and the facilitator will be there just to make sure that the students stay on task and do the work. We are hoping, and we're working very hard to limit the number of courses that are administered via distance learning, but we definitely don't want to start the year with just a substitute within the classroom. Yeah, it's exactly the same. Mhm.
I want to thank you for being here today, because I know this is one of the days that all of your staff is getting together, but I just want to let you know that without a doubt, you've got 110% support from the department and 110% support from this board. So anything that you need in order to make sure that you're successful and your students, more importantly, are successful, all you need to do is pick up the phone and let us know that. All right.
That's providing you make a decision to partner with us.
I really apologize for that. That was an inside joke from
right.
yesterday that I should have taken off.
Thank you. Board members, before I go on to Spotlight, I just wanted to draw your attention to the other things that are in your folder. I believe it was last month that a request had been made for us to come up with some kind of guidelines in order to recognize students at each board meeting. So we've got a proposal here. I'd like you to take a look at it. We welcome your feedback before we launch this. And so certainly, Ms. Dean, we definitely want your eyes on this too, so that we can make sure that you're feeling that we're meeting all the students' needs. You've also got the PowerPoints that will be used behind that, the one on the kindergarten readiness assessment. Dr. Gavin will be bringing forth the budget for action. You are going to be voting on the cuts for the new science assessment. We also have to get you to approve the methodology around the MAP-A growth component of the accountability model. And also, we are bringing forth a recommendation around a one-year reprieve, is what we're calling it, to the special non-renewable licenses, and we'll talk about that. But I wanted you to know that anytime you have that, all of your PowerPoints are here. And so now I want to go to Spotlight, which we do every year. And this month's Spotlight is going to feature MDE's literacy support grants and how they're helping school districts to implement a lot of their summer reading camps. Last month really helped schools not only pay for the staffing, but the transportation and the supplies there. These are camps that are designed to support struggling readers so that we can avoid summer slide, is what we call it. We also are featuring Morton Elementary School in Scott County on this video. But I want to introduce members of our literacy team that oversee our literacy work. And these, I can tell you, are some of the hardest working people you will ever find, because you can never find them. They're always out in school. So as I introduce you, please stand. So our Kristen Wells, Jill Hoda, Lori Stringer, and Leanne Cheeseman, and these are four of our very, very strong literacy people. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for the leadership that you provide. I know how hard you're out there working. There's not a thing that escapes these ladies in terms of literacy. So without further ado, let's see our video.
The summer slide is the tendency to lose achievement gains that students have made over the previous years during the summer. The most effective way to prevent the summer slide is for community organizations to come together, such as schools and libraries and community centers, to build the love of reading in the students and inform families about the importance of reading over the summer. To combat the summer slide and help support struggling readers, the Mississippi Department of Education has issued $3 million in summer reading grants to 24 schools across the state of Mississippi over the next 3 years.
Grant funds from MDE have been utilized by, first of all, setting up a camp director, which is Ms. Julie Mahaffey, securing 8 teachers per class for both sessions, bus drivers to pick up students that are within 15 miles radius from the school who do not have transportation, and purchasing supplies.
The program that we have is based on STEAM, and it stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Mathematics. And so each day they have a different book that they read, and they do some type of activity that is geared towards that STEAM. It may be an art activity, it may be an activity to do with math, it could be something to do with engineering, them building something, but they do some type of hands-on activity with that book that they read. Teachers are using graphic organizers such as the KWL chart. Our reading program that we use throughout the school year, Collaborative Classroom, does a lot of turn and talk, and so getting the students having collaboration with each other. And so that's something they are doing through the reading camp also, is getting them used to that, having those conversations, developing that oral language, and also vocabulary, really focusing on the vocabulary, especially with our EL students attending, having pictures related to the vocabulary that associate, so they can make that association.
The kids have loved summer camp. Most of them, when they get on the buses, are so excited to come back, and that is just phenomenal that they're learning this summer, but they're enjoying it. And so we hope to see growth when they come back in August.
The literacy team, congratulations, hats off to you guys, and I'd be curious to see when you go back out, give us some feedback on how the summer camps went. I'd like to know that too. Thank you, and that concludes my report, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. Congratulations. That's great. Look around the room, you'll see we're 100% technology oriented. I'm not sure when Mr. Johnny gets back we'll be 100% technology oriented, but we're so appreciative to the technology team for our iPads and the support. And Tamla, I'm so sorry. I bet you'll change your phone number after this. So thank you for your support, and thank you for the opportunity. It is a little bit of a learning curve, but it's been really good. I had the opportunity to represent the state board and Dr. Dean down at the MASS conference, Mississippi Association of Superintendents, School Superintendents, and bring greetings from that and talk about Mississippi Succeeds a little bit. I think every time we get an audience, we ought to be talking about our successes, and so that was a part of my presentation down there, and talking with superintendents a little bit about the struggle with the accountability model, and knowing that it is such a struggle, but at the end of the day, from the 10,000-foot view, it's elevating us, and we've got to continue to chip away at the things that are wrong with the accountability model and the places that it doesn't fit. But at the same time, know that what we have is working, and it's elevating us across the board. So it was a good time to step before people and talk about the successes that we have in Mississippi overall, and just remind ourselves that the accountability model is moving us forward. Now, is it perfect? Absolutely not. Can we make it better? Absolutely. And so we're on a mission to continue to do that. So that was fun. As you well know, Mr. McClellan is concluding his term in 2019. Long-standing member of this board. I think he came on in 2005. Lengthy service. And always fighting for those who couldn't fight for themselves. I have such appreciation for that, such appreciation for his service. We have a resolution I'd like to read in honor of him. Whereas Mr. Charles McClellan was appointed to the Mississippi State Board of Education to serve an unexpired term of Frank Melton from 2005 to 2009 as an at-large representative, and was reappointed in 2010 to continue serving for a full 9-year term until 2019. And whereas Mr. McClellan, a lifelong educator and former high school basketball coach, served as a principal in Panola County, the first principal at Northwest Rankin Attendance Center in Brandon, and as assistant superintendent in the Rankin County School District. And whereas Mr. McClellan's educational background, including a bachelor's degree from Alcorn State University and a master's degree in education, administration, and supervision from Jackson State University, has prepared him for a lifetime of service to Mississippi children. And whereas Mr. McClellan has brought a passion and commitment to his role on the Mississippi Board of Education to make sure Mississippi's public schools, especially schools that have traditionally underperformed, are always improving and children receive the education they deserve. Therefore, be it resolved that on this, the 18th day of July, 2019, the Mississippi State Board of Education recognizes Mr. Charles McClellan for his contributions to the Mississippi State Board of Education and for the advancement of education in Mississippi. If you join me in showing our appreciation for Dr. McClellan. That concludes my report, and I know we had several subcommittees that met, and we'll ask for reports from our subcommittees this time.
My report, the Academic Achievement Committee met yesterday afternoon. We had a full agenda. We, as always, got an update on professional development and from March to the end of the year, and we have had 9,265 educators impacted through professional development with 78 districts served. So that tells you that people are engaged out there and are participating. And I'm going to defer to Dr. Oakley on a couple of these things, but one of the big discussions we had was IDA applications and the streamlining that they've done on those applications to make it easier for school districts to apply and make it much more efficient for them to get their monies more quickly and be able to use those. So I'll let Dr. Oakley.
Yeah. Thank you. So in summary, over the past year, the Office of Special Education, we've got part of the team back in the back that have been deep in the weeds on this work, have been working alongside the Office of Federal Programs to kind of refine the timeline by which we require districts to apply for their special education funds. And we had tremendous support from districts in this with regard to their response time. I had, with the exception of one district that's not pursuing special education services, it's a special instance. It's not a district exactly, but a special institution that's not pursuing continued accreditation. Our districts responded and got their plans in by our expected timeline and are in a position to be able to start those projects early in the fiscal year. So we're very pleased with the work that's gone into that. The training that's gone into that from that office has been tremendous. So.
As a result of Dr. Wright's involvement with Broad and the SPED outcomes in the state in special ed, we discussed the efforts that are being made to increase the special education graduation rate. Right now it's at about 36%, and the national average I think is 67%. So we need to bump that up and make the efforts to help those students get some type of diploma. So do you have any other?
Yeah, it's not just a special education initiative. We had folks from general ed on the secondary and elementary side, federal programs, grants management, teaching and leading. So we had really folks from across the agency. Dr. Wright was right in the middle of this 2-hour work session on Monday morning where we really dug into kind of what we know from research, what we know from the high leverage practices for students with disabilities, some of our areas of support that we have in place now. And the consensus from the meeting was that everybody left making connection with another office they maybe didn't have before and leaving with some additional background they didn't have when they got there. And so the feedback from that meeting will lay out a plan for us going forward with regard to kind of which areas we tackle first to address the outcomes statewide. Thank you.
I think it's important that the board know about all the background work that's going into these kinds of efforts and the impact that they'll have across the state. So that's why I asked Dr. Oakley to help explain all that. As a side note, you mentioned the Elevate conference that you participated in. I've had several teachers who have commented that went to that and talked about what an impactful meeting it was, that it was just so inspiring and motivating, and also congratulations to the department for the work that they did on that.
Yes, early childhood subcommittee met for just a brief time yesterday, and I apologize that I did not bring my stuff, but Miss Altman is rescuing me over here. I was distracted when I was getting out of my vehicle. It was in the front seat, but I left it. Apologize. children sometimes will do that for you. But the main thing that we focused on in early childhood was the fact that the family engagement framework and toolkit is finally been printed and ready to start dispersing out. The plan is they have a conference next week that is an early childhood conference that is inviting lots of different preschools and sites there, including Head Start, that they will disperse of it then. Also, too, there is a plan in place to disperse out throughout the state that will include infant and toddler, preschools, and K through 12 sites. The framework and toolkit had external and internal stakeholders to help develop it, and they did develop it with it to be able to go all the way up through 12th grade. All the way up to high school, we need that family engagement. So, and Ms. Altman does have the finished copy. This one is actually finished. The toolkit, we were ready to get a copy of it, but they were finishing the final details of getting it printed. So that's it.
We, unlike evidently the other committees, we had a very lengthy meeting of about 2 hours between our leadership of Dr. Murphy and Mr. Moss, and between Brittany and I. We interrupted them every time they mentioned something, and then we'd get off on a tangent. But we had a very informative meeting. The lead topic was to actually bring Brittany up to speed on the work that has been going on the Diverse and Learner Ready Teacher Initiative. We have, I have been serving on that committee along with Dr. Murphy and Mr. Moss. Started as a national thing, and it's moved now to just center funding for nationally, the national group, which was 9 states, I think, is now centered ours is just concentrating on Mississippi, and so we were wanting to have Brittany up to speed on that of what's happening, because it's very exciting work that's being accomplished. It's been mentioned twice about the Teach Mississippi teacher recruitment campaign. I understand, as Dr. Wright pointed out, that we will have a full review of that at the next meeting, an August meeting. We also reviewed, of course, the programs to address the teacher shortage issue in Mississippi, talking some about the teacher pathways of Grow Your Own and teacher residency program, how those programs are progressing and appear to be well underway and making progress. There's 2 items on today's board agenda. First, in the consent agenda, which nobody has to have lifted out, so I assume it is going to be approved, and that's for some education preparation programs that are being offered up by various universities. And then the other item is on the discussion agenda, and I'm sure that I know we have a PowerPoint to see with that. Will receive your undivided attention, I hope, because it's very important that we be able to, that we, MDE, meaning the we there, be able to move forward with giving some reprieve to our non-traditional teacher preparation programs.
Yes, we had our second meeting. I can tell you that we're still in our infancy stages, figuring out which direction we want to go, but we spent a lot of time today talking about some of the foundational building blocks that we're going to need. So for the August meeting, we plan on giving a full board update. And then in October, our target is to roll out our 5-year strategic plan for the state. So more to come. Thank you.
National kindergarten readiness assessment results. I think Dr. Manford.
Bring my paper copies with me because I was afraid I didn't get all my notes transferred to the iPad. But as Mr. Bailey stated, item 1 is an information item regarding our spring of 2019 kindergarten readiness assessment results. that supports the State Board of Education's approved K through 3 assessment system, support system. So we will, I'll turn it over to Dr. Oakley shortly, but as you know, the assessment's designed to measure the readiness skills of students that are entering kindergarten or any of the other public funded pre-K programs. So the backup material that was provided to you prior to the meeting is the comparison of those programs, and it's the early learning collaboratives, the other funded pre-K, public pre-K programs, and then public kindergarten. So Dr. Oakley is going to walk us through the presentation that will provide the overview of 3 years of data for these programs, as well as the next steps for districts and schools and the next steps for MDE. And as Dr. Wright mentioned, your PowerPoint presentation is in your folder.
And just as a matter of background, Shelby, we give the kindergarten readiness assessment each year to our pre-K students to get a sense for those students that are participating in a pre-K program, where they may have deficit areas, and also to give a sense of teachers of their progress over the course of the year. We also give it to our kindergartners at the beginning of the school year and at the end of the school year for that same kind of information. We give teachers a sense of, are those students coming in with the kind of the pre-reading skills and the foundational reading skills they need to move through kindergarten with kindergarten instruction. So as we dig into the data on this, the first slide here is the results from our early learning collaboratives. And this is the percentage of students that met or exceeded the spring benchmark score of 498. And that benchmark score is based on national data through Renaissance Learning. This is a Renaissance assessment that the board procured several years back. But those students that meet that 498 score are expected to be have a 70% likelihood of being proficient in third grade reading. So there's a connection between this pre-K or kindergarten data and their third grade outcomes. So we're trying to project forward for these students, their chances of success, and help teachers know which students may need some additional support. In the spring of 17, you can see the rates are generally flat. Now, last year we showed some tremendous jumps in the data because the scale to the left only captured about 5 or 6 percentage points. We went back and dropped this in at the full 0 to 100% on the chart, so you can see a slight bump from last year to this year. We did see a decline in the spring of 2018. We brought on 4 new collaboratives in the 2017-18 school year that had never done this before, and so that drop was not unexpected, but we did see a little bit of a rebound there, even with those collaboratives in their second year of operation, wherein almost 77% of our pre-K students are exiting those collaborative programs ready for kindergarten content. Keep in mind that you can contrast that with our beginning of year kindergarten data that typically runs about 33 to 35% of students statewide that are going into kindergarten ready for kindergarten instruction. This is some 2,000 students from the roughly 35,000 we have in the state that are included in these numbers. When we start to look at our other funded pre-K, the collaboratives that we just looked at, that's a $6.5 million appropriation from the legislature serving those 2,000 students in the state. But we also have districts that are using a lot of local funds. As we talked this morning, they have title dollars, they have federal dollars they can use for a number of projects. And a lot of districts are using title money to pay for pre-K programs to the tune of $16 million annually statewide. And so we're seeing not quite the same level of readiness among those other programs, but still increase from year to year. We're at almost 70% now of those other funded programs, wherein those pre-K students are demonstrating readiness for kindergarten content. And then if we look at the end of kindergarten results, these are students, again, in the fall, the 65% of students that are exiting kindergarten ready for first grade, only about half of those would have come into kindergarten ready for kindergarten content. And so this, as I frequently say, this is a result of the hard work of kindergarten teachers and parents and students like you, day in and day out, that are seeing this kind of impact on outcomes for our students. And as I talked with folks over the last week at Mass and then at Medish yesterday, the literacy outcomes that we shared last month with the change in the promotion requirements and with the proficiency the expectations inching closer to proficiency for promotion from third grade to fourth grade. This is not a third grade challenge. This is something we've got to address with our collaboratives, with connections with families, the family engagement toolkit that's available, the resources that are going out from the department to support this on the pre-K side, with the literacy side, has an impact down the road as we look at post-secondary potential, as we look at graduation and dropout and all those other data points, they all connect back to what's happening in these early grades. So for districts and schools that are taking this data that's going out via the report, what do they need to do with this? They need to give thought to their pre-K programs and the funding they got available through either the collaborative or through title dollars to be able to use those to implement quality pre-K programs and to work closely with their private providers, with the Head Start, to ensure those students are transitioning from pre-K into kindergarten with more than just I came to campus to visit and I walked through the cafeteria and I had lunch in your school one day. There needs to be this ongoing dialogue between those pre-K teachers and the kindergarten teachers to look at where the students may be struggling, where the students have strong background, so that those kindergarten teachers are equipped when the school year starts to take those students and move them forward and not try to regroup and start without that information that can be provided through that transition plan. And then using the Family Guides for Student Success, the new family toolkit that's coming. Yes, sir.
Quick clarification question on the back.
Sure. I can. Thank you. Yep. So this whole trajectory toward third grade proficiency is a 498 score at the end of pre-K. It's a 530 score at the beginning of kindergarten. And on that same trajectory, if you were to draw this line from pre-K to third grade, that 681 scale score puts them on the trajectory, that same trajectory toward third grade proficiency. Thank you. Good question. Good question. And then as we consider other steps, these family engagement toolkit, the family engagement activities and the resources there's an opportunity to connect with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading communities that are being deployed across the state to build community awareness there beyond just parents, but really to look at local civic organizations, local libraries, and other local groups that may be supportive of the need to address literacy within their community, again, with the view toward these larger challenges that address us in education. This data can be used to consider resource allocation, selection of instructional programs, as well as to inform instructional planning for first grade teachers, and to, again, go back and build those partnerships as they look at the enrollment experience information that we gather from students across the state going into kindergarten to better strengthen the connection between those Head Start, faith-based providers, wherever those students are. The overwhelming majority of them are enrolling in public kindergarten. They're coming through the doors of our public schools in kindergarten. And so we've got to be doing a better job of building that connection in those communities to ensure those other entities are alongside the schools in this effort. For local library programs, there's a great opportunity here, regardless of where you are in the state, to partner and to provide summer reading programs or other programs to build literacy in those students. And then we've got other resources like the Read at Home plan and the instructional practices and model classroom resources that districts can use. From the department standpoint, the instruction that's going on in schools, again, this goes back to what we were talking about with Ms. Altman earlier, as we address the needs of student subgroups. We've got to have effective classroom teachers across the continuum of grade levels, and we've got to ensure that we're providing webinars, coaching, face-to-face professional development, additional resources to teachers across the state to strengthen what's happening in those classrooms. And then ultimately, look at this data as we consider policy changes, as we consider professional development needs and other decisions at the state level. This data can help to inform that. The early learning standards and guidelines were both revised over the last year or 18 months and better position us as a state for this kind of seamless continuum from pre-K through 12th grade. And so we will continue to push out resources to districts as we look at this pre-K early childhood piece as one of the key levers to changing outcomes for our state as a whole. So I'd be glad to take any questions that you might have.
Remind me, all these sites that don't, where we have the asterisk that don't have enough in-count students, I guess, is that?
So the data is redacted from a public reporting standpoint when we have a small in-count, and that is in line with our business rules from the agency to protect student privacy. Those students and those schools can still see those scores. We just don't report them out at the state level for the general public to see, because you could potentially tie it back to either John Kelly or Rosemary Altman, if you knew just a little bit about
But
that community.
doesn't, I mean, the fact that there's no score there doesn't impact the overall average or percentage at the end. They're figured into the percentages, they're just not.
They're redacted for that individual.
All right, I've forgotten how that all worked.
Good news. I mean, I really can't say enough about kindergarten teachers, because when you realize that we've got basically 2 out of every 3 students that are coming into kindergarten not ready for kindergarten, and yet we've got 2 out of every 3 leaving kindergarten ready. So kindergarten teachers are doing a yeoman's job across the state. So
The early childhood office, through the Kellogg coaches
Absolutely.
and through the team that we've got
Absolutely.
here, have been providing a lot of support for the collaboratives, rolling statewide professional development out, and that's just expanding. And they'll be hosting a conference in the next week, partnering with Head Start to continue this work.
And I think it speaks volumes about the fact that our early learning collaboratives are really outpacing all other pre-K. And so this just begs the question for more money for the collaboratives around early childhood. So we know that that's a priority of yours, but it's always nice to see that not only are children doing well, but we could use a whole lot more money and put a whole lot more kids in these collaboratives that could be experiencing this too. A lot easier. So imagine for a minute, if you could, every pre-K student having a high quality experience, then moving into kindergarten where kindergarten could pick up. And then by the time they get to first grade, where first grade, et cetera, could just sail. So it's just powerful that we've got the ability to do this. We just need more funds to get more kids involved, particularly those that struggle with not having the rich experiences that other children do. So we're hanging in there with it. Hats off to the early childhood team, Jill Dent, et cetera.
I'll speak to it from a high school standpoint, middle school, high school. They arrive. They're already a year behind coming to you in the kindergarten realm, and they, for some reason, messing up. You look at the data. If a youngster gets 2 years behind and arrives in the 7th grade, his chances are slim as you graduate. And that's how important those pre-K programs are. So I can't say enough about them. And sometimes it's easy to put your title money or the money somewhere else other than there. Not enough to go around sometimes, but that's a worthy investment along the way. But it is a longer range investment in that you're invested in a kindergarten. You're going to see the benefit of that on down the line or pre-K. So worthy program.
Can I ask a quick question just for my learning? Have we ever done a study to show the dollar impact of not doing it now, and all the remedial and all the man hours, women hours that you need to get them caught up?
That's a really good point. And we've got 2 researchers now on staff. So that's a really good point. In fact, the other point I was going to look at you, Mr. Suggs, too, that early in many other states, this was coming through with SREB, in many other states, they are using the implementation of high quality early childhood as a workforce development strategy, so that if they know that if they get these kids started off well, to Mr. Bailey's point, then they're not going to be going through a lot of this remediation and will be more workforce ready if we can start them at a younger age. So I thought that was very interesting that states are using that as a workforce development strategy.
Now, this further underscores the critical need for these programs in what we traditionally have low performing areas in the state. I mean, if you have a good pre-K program, even though you have lots of other issues, a child has a far greater chance of coming into school and being successful, which floats all boats.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Questions?
Thank you.
Next 2 items are action items. Item 2 and 3 under Chief Operations Officer, related to the Mississippi Adequate Education Program base cost and the estimate of Mississippi Adequate Education Program.
Dr. Gavin, you're on.
Morning.
Have this PowerPoint too in your folder.
As you know, we spent quite a bit of time in the month of last month going through our 2021 budget request. But the one item that we did not cover in that budget request was the MAAP. So items 2 and 3 really go together. So if you would click on item 3. And I have with me this morning Letitia Johnson, who is the Director of School Financial Services, as well as Sharon Roselle to my left, who is our Budget Director. And we also have Scott Hodges here, who is with our CPA firm that calculates our MAP formula. Scott Hodges here with Tam Brown and Russ. Scott. Okay. So if you would go to item 3, we're requesting approval for the preliminary estimate of the Mississippi Adequate Education Program for fiscal year 21. And the first item that we need approval on is the base student cost. And you can see that the base student cost, the estimate for the base student cost for FY 2021 is $5,818.56. And the total, if you would go on to the summary, the MAP base costs is $1,992,526,385,000, and the add-on programs are $547,952,620, and all of our other programs $14,985,054. So our total MAP cost for FY 2021, the preliminary estimate is $2,555,464,059. And you have all the detail behind that, the details for all the add-on program as well as the other programs. Questions on MAP?
Calculation to this calculation, what's the difference? Is it about the same, or is it?
Our FY20, and again, this is for full funding. This is our request for full funding. Our FY20 full funding request was $2,470,994. So it's about an $84,470,000 additional funding request. That's over full funding. Now our actual funding was about 9% less. Any other questions there? Okay.
That difference, Dr. Galvin, is due primarily to inflation or new programs. What accounts for that?
It includes, there is an inflation cost as well as the teacher pay raise adjustment. Mm-hmm. Okay, item 5. You're going to take, okay.
Discussion on 2 and 3.
Take these action as we go.
Yes, we're going to go action as we go. Mm-hmm.
Here I move approval of item number 2 and 3.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Okay. Item 5. Okay. So item 5 is, like I said, we spent a great bit of time in June discussing our FY 2021 requests for our general fund as well as CTE programs requests. So item 5 is, you have in your board book the complete package. So we'll just cover the highlights.
4. I don't believe that we had a vote on that.
I'm sorry, item 4. Items 2 and 3 were, items 2 was the base cost, and item 3 was the actual funding for MAP.
Now we're going to 4.
Item 4, yes, that's the full budget request, including MAP funding.
I can ask a question, just so I'm clear on this. You mentioned that there was an $84 million increase from one year to this year, last year to this year, in the budget.
Yes.
That includes salary increases.
Now, this is MAP. Just MAP.
Salary increases are out.
Salary increases for the teachers? That's inclusive of that. Yes.
Does include.
Yes.
You're asking $84 million in additional funding, I don't know what the teachers' pay raise ended up being. You've heard all kind of numbers.
So the 2 point,
Would that be included? I mean, does that sound not as bad? Is that not as bad as it sounds? I guess is what I'm saying. If it includes the teacher pay raise.
yeah, and again, that the 84 million is an increase over the full funding for FY20 versus FY21, and so that does include. We have to add that to the base costs for the upcoming year, so that does include the full funding of the teacher pay raise as well as for inflation that we always include each year.
So it's not just money for school districts to use or programs to use. It also
Is inclusive of the teacher pay raise that was appropriated for this year. That's correct.
I had confused the issue.
Problem. Okay, our next slide. FY 2021, of course, our FY 2021 budget request is inclusive of all 6 of our goals. Again, this is your PowerPoint that you have before you. We will kind of go, we won't spend a whole lot of time on this because we did cover most of this in our workshop in June, but just bringing your attention to slide number 3, our fiscal priorities for FY 2021. Our total general fund increase is about $11 million over FY20, and $3.5 million of that, as we discussed at length, is going towards, our request is going towards MSIS. We're also requesting an additional $3.2 million for early childhood, and again, full funding for MAP. And one other item is additional funding for our literacy-based promotion of $1 million. So that's kind of the highlights of what our increases are for FY 2021. Next slide.
Dr. Gavin, what you may or may not know this right off, what is the value dollar-wise of this test security? What are we proposing to ask for in terms of dollars to support test security? Do you know that?
It's 278,000
Where do you all find that?
on page 4.
Slide 4, the very first one at the top. Slide 4.
Slide 4. The 207, the first item on there, the 278. It's not, look in your PowerPoint. That particular slide is not, it's probably easier to look.
Slide
Probably
8
easy.
in your
Slide
on your
8 in the
board.
inside, and then 4 on that one.
The package that you have in your board book is the full budget request, and the PowerPoint presentation that I'm going through is just a quick kind of the highlights of what we're requesting for FY 2021. But in the PowerPoint, it's slide 4, 278,000. Okay. On slide 5, again, our MAP, this is our total request of $2.55 billion, and that is about 10.8% increase over FY20. Again, this is full funding. As you can see, our CTE funding is about just only a 15% increase over FY20. And our Chickasaw School Fund request, which is based formula driven by the feds, that's down slightly. And I think that's down because 16 section revenue is down. If you move on to slide 6, we're requesting level funding for the Mississippi School for the Blind. And then our total, if you move on to slide 7, our total requests for K-12 is $2.857012. And that is a 9% increase in total over our FY20 request. And again, the majority of that is in MAP. Any questions?
Other questions on item 4? Under the Office of Chief Operations Officer, do I have a motion to approve item 4?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next action item is action item 5, approval of Mississippi Department of Education contract, and that's 5A and B.
Okay, item 5A, we have three contracts that we're seeking approval on under retirees.
Questions on those? So under the office of Chief Operations Officer, do I have a motion to? Yeah.
Move on to 5B.
Take them
Oh,
together.
what?
A and B are together. Did you?
Okay.
On 5A and B, we don't have any attachments in this, do we?
You do.
I can't see them.
No, there's not any attachments to 5A. Oh, there is on mine.
It's an
There
attachment.
is on mine.
It's a,
Did you go back?
just scroll up.
Go to the one that is the one right above that, Dr. Elam, because it confused me at the beginning. If you look at your agenda, go right up, go to the top of 5A. See the, rather than below, because that confused me too.
It's tab
attached below-
05.
It's attached above 5A.
The tab 05.
I'm at the same place. I don't have an attachment either.
Okay, if you look on your agenda, you'll see five, you'll see item 5. Right below that, you'll see tab COO contracts.
Yeah,
So that's the one that's the contracts that Dr. Elam
that's
did.
the one I'm clicking on.
Okay.
So tab A will be your retiree.
Okay.
Gives you the backup.
Thank you.
Got it.
Thank you.
You got it, Dr. Elam?
All right, now, what you wanted a motion to?
I think you want me to cover 5B first.
We're gonna cover 5B. We just covered 5A, and then
Okay.
we'll vote on 5A and B together.
Okay, action item 5B is a one contract. It's with the personnel to provide consultant services as a literacy coach.
Nathan,
Dr. Oakley.
a question about the literacy coach?
Our coaches. Most of our coaches are hired as educators in residence. We do have occasions where individuals apply that are not connected to a school district, and we do just a separate contract with them. Their role is the same, just the hiring process is different. This is one person. This is salary and travel fringe.
Chairman, I move approval of item 5A and B.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, next item is 6A. We're requesting approval for one grant. Do we have the backup pulled up on that one? Okay. And this one grant is for Sunflower County Consolidated School District. It's for 2 EIRs, and it is a 5-year grant contingent upon funding. And it is for special education services.
Matching or any commitment from the school district on this? I mean, this grant covers it all.
This is all federal funds. I don't think.
This is another educator in residence grant. It is from the department. Sunflower happens to be the host district for these EIRs, and they are doing work for the department across the state with new special education directors. So they're not working specifically for Sunflower. They're just the fiscal agent that's hiring these individuals.
Other questions? On the Office of Chief Operations Officer, do I have a motion to approve item 6A? Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Next will be under the Office of Chief Accountability Officer. Recommended cut scores on the academic assessment program for science, grade 5, 8, 12.
Dr. Domaleski, are you on the phone? Yes, I am. Okay, we had asked Dr. Domaleski, you remember Dr. Domaleski chairs our Technical Advisory Committee, our TAC, and so Dr. Domaleski has been integrally involved in this whole process, so we wanted him on the phone in case you might have had any other questions for him. So welcome, Dr. Domaleski.
So before we move into the presentation, I just want to talk about the two reports that you received in your backup material earlier in the week. One report was from the assessment vendor, DRC, and one report was for the Center of Assessment. Both of the reports that you received were more technical in nature and just an in-depth overview of the standard setting process that occurred mid-June. The reports included temporary scales and impact data, but what we will provide to you today in the presentation are the actual cut scores that we are asking you to approve. So Dr. Oakley, so on the goal slide, the approval of, or the request for approval of this item actually references goals 1 and 2 of the State Board Strategic Plan. As you know, the new Mississippi College and Career Readiness Standards for Science were implemented in the 17-18 school year, and then the following year, in school year 18-19, we administered the new MAP assessment for grades 5 and 8 science and biology that aligned with our new standards. So as you know, with any new assessment, it's a standard setting process that's required, and then we ask the board for approval of those cut scores. So as I mentioned earlier, the MDE convened along with the vendor a standard setting committee on June 18th and 19th, and we had 3 panels. One panel that represented grades 5 science, and the second grade 8 science, and then biology into course. And we had a diverse group of educators that participated. As you can see in your slide, 86% of those that participated currently served as a classroom teacher. 72% of them held a master's degree or higher, and 58% of the panel had taught for more than 15 years. And again, the reports that provided you ahead of the board meeting gave you a more in-depth review of the process. Panelists recommended a minimum scale score that a student needs to earn on each assessment to be classified in one of the 5 performance levels, and which are called cut scores. So with this new science assessment, we now have 5 performance levels, which is the same that we have for ELA and math. We utilized a research-based method that's frequently used and recommended for statewide assessments, and this process was approved by our Technical Advisory Committee. Now slide 7, this is the recommended cuts based on the standard setting process. Again, you just had temporary cuts or placeholders that were provided in the earlier backup material, but since that backup material was released, we have been provided the actual recommended cuts from the vendor, and slide 7 are the cuts that we are proposing that This time, I just want to ask Dr. Samsel, State Assessment Director, if there's anything that that I might have missed that we should have shared, and we certainly want to allow Dr. Domaleski, who's on the phone. He and another colleague from the Center of Assessment participated in the standard setting process as MDE representatives. So, but he could certainly might have some additional information to add.
And the only thing I can add that might help with this is very close. In fact, level 3 and level 4 cuts are identical to our ELA and math. So it would be very clear to our districts when they're looking at their ELA and math scores for grades 5 and 8, and when they're looking possibly at English 2 and algebra and biology, we're all going to be on the same page.
So Dr. Domaleski, do you have anything that you would like to add?
We don't have anything for Dr. Pemper. I think he covered it very nicely, as well as Dr. Samsel. I think I would emphasize that you made on the previous slide, which is that if we followed a well-established research-based process that's consistent with strong professional practice, it's really the implementation of those research-based practices that we think contribute to the technical sensibility of the standards for Mississippi science assessments. And as you noted, Dr. Pemper, I was on site there. We worked with the team. They did a superb job, and I'm confident in the outcome of the process.
Idea what the impact is one way or the other of going to a different scale with five levels.
A lot less confusing for our districts right now to go to this, but it's still, I've done a lot of work to compare it to what we had last year, and from the way I look at these, it's going to be, we do have the passing scale is what we added for level 3, which we did not have last year for our science, and then we have our level 4 and level 5, which is still proficient in advanced. So it's basically, we just added the passing cut.
Education's sake, we're taking the better of those two for this year. So to build on that just a little bit, just for education's sake.
Are released, we will calculate the results with the new science assessment, as well as we have the results from the previous year, and in line with the methodology that we used for the EL component last year, we will report the results of the new assessment in accordance with ESSA. That's what will be reported, but the district's official grade will be assigned on the higher of the two. So we will automatically, there's a lot of districts that really feel good about the science assessment this year and are anxiously awaiting the cuts, and actually think that they may have a higher percentage of proficiency with the new assessment versus the old. But what we'll do in those calculations is whichever is higher for the component for the schools or the districts will be what will be presented to the board for approval for the district's official performance classification.
Just again, another learning for me. Once this is done, what's the, educate me on the rollout plan? How's it communicated? How's it delivered? How's that process work?
So once the board approves these cuts today, the vendor will finalize the data files, and those will be provided to the district, so the districts will know where the cuts are and the number of students that fall within each performance category. And then we have a data team here that's anxiously awaiting these results from the vendor, so that we can move forward with the preliminary results to be released to the state board. So tentatively, to the district. So tentatively, we're on target to release to districts on August the 19th. At the preliminary results, and the districts will have a 2-week window through
The
August
preliminary results of
the accountability system. I'm sorry, that as talking to you like talking to the superintendents at Mass, but release the preliminary files, and the districts will have a 10-day business day window to report concerns or file any appeals before it comes to the board for final approval in September.
Practitioner, school administrator, how once this gets to the districts, are we likely to hear about any hiccups or any concerns at the district level with this change?
I think there's some concern over changing scale and seeing how that impact data related out, and some fear that it's going to drop. But I do hear excitement over the new test, and you know, thinking that this year's work may be better than last year's work. So that certainly is encouraging to hear. I think the concern may be not this year when we're taking better of the two, but next year when it goes live and there's a new cut score out there and we're plugging in data at a different time and we don't really know what that looks like. So the unknown scares us a little bit right there. New test. I will say, you know, if we look historically back at the Algebra 1 test, which is not really apples to apples, but we look historically back at the Algebra 1 test, and when we gave that new one, and it dropped us dramatically in performance on that. That doesn't mean that it's going to happen that way on this one. The indications are it's not going to be that dramatic. But I think if there is a concern out there, is that look and what it looks like historically when we have a new test, and finding out what that cut score looks like, you know, when you plug in impact data across the state.
I guess I hear you saying that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'll say it the way I see it. There's always going to be some level of concern when it's something new. It's an unknown. And from what I'm hearing and have looked at, it doesn't look like it represents that much of a change, but I just wanted to feel the pulse of you as an administrator.
I think as we plug that data in and we see what we did this year in relationship to what we did on the new test versus the old test, we'll have a lot better read on what that looks like, and therefore where we have to go in relationship to it. It's just an unknown, and unknowns are always concerns when you step into that. It does. It does. Absolutely. Any other questions on cut scores? Do I have a motion to approve item 7? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Dr. Domaleski, are you still, you're going to hang in here with us on the next item as well?
I'd be happy to, yes, ma'am.
So item number 8 is approval to establish the cuts for the growth calculations on the Mississippi Academic Achievement Program alternate assessment, which we refer to as MAP A. So you also received backup material prior to the meeting for this item, and there's been one change that I want to note before Alan starts with the presentation, and again, you have this presentation in your folder at your desk. In the backup material, the 8 growth measures were identified the same as they are with MAP, with 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. But the difference in the MAP assessment, we have 5 levels, performance levels, and with MAP A, we only have 3. So as we continue to talk with stakeholders and have internal conversations with leadership, we felt it was a bit confusing if we had a 3-level MAP A system and use the same identical growth labels 1A through 5 because we wanted to avoid confusion with the field that there were 5 performance levels on MAP. So in the presentation that Alan will do shortly, we've relabeled those simply 1 through 8 for the different, for the 8 growth calculations there. So at this time, and that also your backup material included the distribution for grades 3 through 8, ELA and math, and we will not provide that impact data again during the presentation.
Okay, so we've gotten lots of questions about how we're going to treat MAP A over the past couple of years, so I'm glad to get to address this today. Looking at specifically our goals 1, 2, 4, and 6 with the establishment of growth measure for MAP A. As Paula mentioned, this is the Mississippi Academic Assessment Program alternate assessment and is used as the state assessment for students with significant cognitive disabilities. Generally, about 1% of the population takes this assessment, and as Paula mentioned, the performance is reported in 3 categories: basic, pass, and proficient. So the Technical Advisory Committee discussed MAP A quite extensively this past year. We went through standard setting in the prior run of accountability, and now we have a discussion about how do we treat growth measures for these assessments. As Paula mentioned, we wanted to have a consistent measure of growth across with our regular MAP assessment, and that would be 8 levels of growth. We use an indexing system for growth measures in Mississippi, so we're looking at the same 8 levels as MAP. And the Accountability Task Force met May the 23rd to look at the impact data, which I believe you have in your materials. It kind of just shows the distribution for each of these 8 levels and what that looks like. We want to make sure that, of course, we've got a meaningful measurement of growth across these 8 levels. So you should make sure you have some students in each of these growth levels and are able to measure progress across them. So the task force looked at all of that and recommended these 8 levels of cuts for measuring growth across the 3 levels of the assessment that you can see on this slide. So the middle portion, which is the pass, has the largest amount of distribution. That's divided up into 4 levels, and then on the 2 ends out there, those are divided in half. So the recommendation from the Accountability Task Force was to establish these 8 growth levels as we provided that would apply for the measure of growth of all students in the all students category for this academic year that we just completed. And there are some additional complications that the task force felt we should discuss further regarding the inclusion of MAP A growth measures in the measure of the lowest quartile of students. So the proposal was to develop a methodology to measure MAP A growth in the lowest quartile in the upcoming year and include that for 2021, because ultimately we want MAP A students to have the same measurements of performance and growth as MAP students. So that was the recommendation from the task force. Do we have any questions regarding what I just went over?
Comment, looking at the impact data, the good news is almost all of these students are at 3 and above. Which is good news. That's where they need to be, is at 3, 4, or 5. So, particularly when you're dealing with students with severe cognitive disabilities.
Also, Chief Accountability Officer, do I have a motion to approve item 8?
Move approval.
Second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
That lunch is here, and we're break for and displeasure of the board. We'll break for lunch now. Take 45. Okay. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Domaleski.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Domaleski, for being with us.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Okay, I think everybody's landed. We could continue our agenda items.
Okay.
I didn't know what I was supposed to use this hammer again for you over there or not.
I was thinking 12:45.
Well, and that may be why Dr. Murphy's not back, but.
Oh, yeah. Well, can you text him? Did you do it? Okay.
Yeah, we'll hold it a few minutes.
Well, Miss Altman just said, I was thinking 12:45. I said, I bet Dr. Murphy was too.
That was.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, we're on item 9. It's an action item, and it's a temporary rule for concerning licensure guidelines.
So in your folder, you also have this PowerPoint presentation as well as additional backup material. So based on some feedback at the subcommittee meeting yesterday, there's been some clarifying language that's been added, and it's highlighted in yellow on the actual policy. So it should be a separate backup material with the policy, and then on page 2, the highlighted area, and then we'll get that updated online for the public. It doesn't change the content of the proposal, just provide some clarification. But item number 9 is approval for a temporary rule, which we would file, and it would become effective immediately upon the board's approval. But to begin the Administrative Procedures Act process to revise a statement within the special non-renewable license that would allow a 1-year reprieve to those candidates that have received a year 1 license, but was not able to be issued year 2. So just as a little history, the special non-renewable license is for prospective non-traditional teacher preparation program completers, and it's a license that can be issued up to 3 years at the district's request to employ a potential teacher that has not met all the certification requirements under the other sections of the law. And the candidate would eventually, over the course of 3 years, receive a standard license. And before I turn it over to Dr. Murphy, I want to just give you a little bit of background, because we've had a number of questions and received a lot of questions at Mass from superintendents about the recent policy changes to the special non-renewable license that were approved by the board in March of 2019. However, there were none. So this policy was established by the board on June the 16th of 2016 initially, to help be one of the methods to address the teacher shortage and provide some relief for districts. We came back to the board in April of 2017 and asked the board to provide some relief, because the initial policy said a candidate or a district could only request a license for a candidate that had a BS degree in the area in which they wanted to teach. And so an unintended consequence of the way the policy was proposed to the board was that there was not always an endorsement that matched the bachelor's degree that the candidate had. So in April of 2017, we asked the board, along with the requirement for a BS degree, to have 21 hours in the content in which the district was requesting the license. So that provided some flexibility and allowed us to issue some additional license there. We came back to the board again in November of 2017 and asked that we allow candidates a period of 1 year, or year 1 of the license, time to meet the entrance requirement for the alternate route programs before moving to year 2 and 3. So this would be our 4th revision to the policy, but none have occurred since November of 2017. This 1 year reprieve would be extended for only a period of 1 year. And it has the potential to help, as Dr. Murphy will provide you the data in the presentation, over 1,100 candidates for the upcoming school year in approximately 30 districts. But we will, Dr. Murphy again will outline those requirements for you. And we just want to emphasize, Dr. Murphy will probably speak to this as well as Dr. Elam did in her comments with the subcommittee meeting. We need to continue to work toward our long-term solutions to address and the shortage areas that we have. And we have a number of initiatives in the Office of Teaching and Leading to do that. But this would, in the immediacy, provide some relief, hopefully to some districts if the board approves. So this time, Dr. Murphy, I'll turn it over to you.
Shared the gist of what the presentation is about.
No, I did not. I did not.
Yes, you did, Dr. Vanderford.
Hey, what are you gonna
Just
say,
saying,
man?
Dr. Vanderford.
Oh, but no, I saved a lot for Dr. Murphy.
Shall we just move for action, Dr. Vanderford?
No, I didn't explain the rationale.
I think I'm ready to.
Oh, nice
we can
try.
vote.
Nice
I
try.
think we can vote. Oh man. Yeah.
Go ahead, Dr. Murphy.
Yeah.
Re-explain it.
Sure. Members of the board and Dr. Wright, thank you so much for the opportunity to add just a bit more to what you just stated.
Gonna be interesting.
You can go over the vision.
What you gonna add?
I was just so excited that we have the proposal. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so basically what's left is the vision and the mission. And the goal that drives the work in our area is goal 4. But what she didn't state was that the State Board of Education is authorized by the law, and it's Mississippi Code annotated 37.3-2, subsection 6D. And basically what that states is that the board is authorized to establish rules and regulations for implementing this particular license and basically allowing candidates who have the potential to gain full state certification in the state of Mississippi, but they don't meet the requirements under paragraphs A, B, and C. And so subsection 6A references candidates or requirements for traditional route candidates. 6B references our alternative or non-traditional programs that have been approved in the state. And then 6C speaks to expert citizens, that special license that allows districts to employ individuals in specialized or technical areas. And so again, 6D basically gives the board the authority to basically develop rules and regulations for issuing that particular license. And at the end of that statement, it states that the license is to be issued not more than 3 years, except by special State Board of Education approval. And so what we're not asking you to do is to change the criteria that you finalized in November of 2017, but we are asking that you please consider that special authority that you have to allow a 1-year reprieve or extension for only those candidates who held the year 1 license, but have not held the year 2 or year 3 license, giving them additional time to really meet all the requirements, whether it be a testing requirement or some other requirement for gaining unconditional admittance into one of our State Board of Education approved non-traditional or traditional route programs. And so the slide I will, we have 2 target groups. The target groups are traditional candidates. And so the special non-renewable license for the traditional candidate is that candidate who's completed all requirements of their teacher education preparation program at the undergraduate level, which included student teaching and other requirements, all but testing, the licensure testing piece. And so local districts can request that license for candidates who've actually met that criteria that you set, and they'll have that period of 3 years to meet the licensure testing requirements. And the only thing they have to do from year to year is to show progress toward meeting the cut scores or qualifying passing scores that you've set for licensure tests that are used in our state. The other target group that districts recruit are candidates like myself who had a pure baccalaureate degree in biology but desired to teach special education. And so I entered the profession, lateral entry from another career,
But the bottom line is this license here is geared toward those particular individuals. And so in order to receive the first or the year one license, as we refer to it, the only thing the candidate has to have is a degree in the area that the district has a vacancy in, or a degree in any area in 21 hours in the area that the district has a vacancy, or a degree in any area and a passing score on one of the State Board of Education approved licensure exams in the area that the district has a need. But in order to move to year two, the individual would have to have met all requirements for gaining entree into one of our non-traditional or traditional pathways to teacher licensure. And so, as Dr. Vanderford stated to you, the last change that we made for this particular license in November of 2017 was based on feedback that we received from the district, and that at the department, we don't set policy and just forget it. We don't implement programs and just forget about them. We actually monitor to make certain that they are indeed yielding the results that we assumed or expect them to yield. And so when we came back to you in April of 2017 and November of 2017, it was based on feedback that we received from the field to basically help them to gain access to a wider array of candidates to onboard into the profession. And so they asked that we move the requirement of the candidates being admitted into the program from year one to year two to give them an opportunity to actually work with those candidates to support them in whatever area they need support in for gaining entree into the program. And so what we found is they're asking again for just a little additional time to continue to work with those candidates and continue the work that they've started with those candidates. And so again, we're not asking for any changes to your current rules and regulations. We're simply asking for a reprieve for that particular group of candidates. And so those candidates consist of individuals who have held a license from the inception of this particular policy, which was in fall of 2016 through the end of this year. So this particular license has been in effect for the past 3 years only. And so what that would do is, again, give districts the opportunity to continue to work with those candidates to get them ready for gaining entree into the program. And we're highlighting here Praxis Core, and that's not, some individuals, it may be a reading assessment, it may be some other assessment or some other requirement, but this was the test that brought about the most challenge to candidates they were having the most difficulty with. And so we as states, there are over 25 states that actually utilize this particular assessment for licensure and entree into programs. And so we advocated for ETS to actually take a look at this exam to ensure that the content that's being measured on the assessment is indeed still relevant and necessary. And they made those adjustments over the course of the past couple years. You recall last month you voted to adopt a new version of the assessment and a new cut score on the new version of the assessment, which takes effect in September of 2019 of this year. And we also pressed ETS to provide more or additional test prep beyond what they were offering. And so they have forged a partnership with Khan Academy to offer free diagnostic individualized learning plans for candidates for these particular assessments. And that will be launched July 22nd. And so we believe that with these changes that we've advocated for with the testing company, but also with the work that districts have been doing to prepare candidates, that these numbers should decrease. And this is the final slide, which basically shares with you some impact of approximately 1,140 candidates who would be a part of a pool for local districts across the state to recruit from if given the opportunity to get that extra year to prepare. And what you see on the right side, and this is by school year, and in the middle of that chart, you'll see the number that we issued each year that this license has been in effect. And then you'll see those who were not able to actually convert that license to the year two license. And so those are the pool of candidates that, or they make up the pool of candidates that districts will be able to recruit from. And that concludes my portion.
A lot to add that I didn't cover.
Struggling, I can tell.
Thick talker, he can.
Yeah, he is. He's good. He's good. That's all right.
straight line between this national teacher crisis that we have and teacher quality, and that line is pulled both ways, you know, and we certainly have to use wisdom to monitor that line, because you know it's a crisis when you can't have a qualified teacher in the room, and so there will always be a movement to manage that, and so you have to hold the line on teacher quality. At the same time, we've got to get teachers qualified. So that's a hard deal. So thank you for your work in that. This certainly gives people another opportunity, a large number of people another opportunity to get certified, and that's what we're about, is to create opportunities where we can and not affect teacher quality at the same time. Any other questions related to that? On the Office of Accountability Officer, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Aye.
Item we have will be one that we pulled off of the consent agenda, was item D under the consent agenda, and it will be item 10, related to process standard 14.1, and it has to do with the wording of may and shall in relationship to the diploma options that we have been in place for a while now. The concern over that was that some of the schools that did not come on board at that particular time, and the wording of shall would make them come on board this year, and for upcoming ninth graders. So that would mean that there's a possibility of those eighth graders not be sufficiently educated into those tracks and the possibility of their diploma options. And there's also the possibility that if we were to provide those options, that a principal would have to go in and redo his master schedule. So the process of that is, I have so many kids in pre-registration, I have so many kids sign up for a class, and then we divide that by 25 or whatever numbers in the class, and that's how many sections we need. So we appropriate teacher units based on those type things. So there was concerns of the timing of doing that in 1 year. Okay. We'll turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, we'll have discussion. I just
Yeah.
wanted to-
So this item, Mr. Bailey had brought forward for discussion, is connected to the diploma endorsement options. When the board approved these in September of 2017, there was language that students may select from the graduation requirements established locally. And when this went forward, it went forward with the freshman class of 18-19. So the board took action on this almost 2 years ago, with implementation to begin in the 18-19 school year with that incoming ninth grade class. It went through APA and public comments at that point in time, went back through APA and public comments with this change. What happened is that over the course of the spring, we started getting calls from really upset or angry parents that their district was not implementing this, even though it was within board policy. They were concerned about the opportunities their students were missing in their district to earn these endorsement options that position them for entry into or acceptance into a post-secondary institution, that really prep those students for what's coming after high school. The expectations are more rigorous than what we've had under the old graduation requirements, but this did start with the ninth grade class of last year. The CSA took action on this in the summer, unanimous vote from the Commission on School Accreditation to move forward with the recommendation to require these of districts. And then the one public comment that we did receive was connected to the implementation timeline, which is where Mr. Bailey wanted to bring this off of consent for discussion. But really the language that we've got in there, we want to recognize students that are meeting these requirements. And so if they're meeting those requirements as incoming seniors or even 11th graders this year, we don't know of any reason why districts would not be able to go ahead and say, yes, you've met this career tech endorsement, or you've met this distinguished academic endorsement. But there's nothing in there that that requires a student to pick one of the 3 endorsements. They can graduate with a traditional diploma. This change would simply require the districts to make those other options available to these incoming freshmen.
And to be honest, I mean, we've had this discussion internally when all these phone calls started coming in, and we, quite honestly, were rather stunned that there were districts out there that had chosen not to make these endorsements available to children. And I never thought we would have had to have come back and turn may into shall, because this is opening opportunities up for children. And this automatic admission into IHLs in Mississippi, we worked with IHL on that so that any child that gets an academic or a distinguished endorsement is automatically admitted. And so there have been a lot of parents that have called us very angry. You may have read some of the news articles about it. And we're saying, look, we made the assumption that when you voted on this 2 years ago, that this was going to be an automatic for all children. And it did not turn out that way. In fact, we have parents who have incoming 9th graders who were told that when even asked about the options, we're told, you don't need to worry about that. You just need to worry about your GPA. So totally discounting what the board had passed 2 years ago. So that's why we're bringing it back with a shall, because every child deserves this opportunity. And I don't think it should be based on a district making a decision that they're just simply not going to offer it. And so I think that this is something that all districts should be offering, and that's why we brought it back with shall, because I'm stunned, to be honest with you, that we've got districts that have not been doing this.
I have a number that shows how many school districts actually went forward with the implementation and how many did not. Do we know that?
We won't necessarily.
We wouldn't at this point in time have a firm number, because those students would not technically, under the policy, meet that requirement. They wouldn't graduate under the policy until the 21-22 school year. So it started with the freshmen of 18, so it'd be sophomores this year, juniors in 20, seniors in fall of 21. And so 21-22 is kind of that projected timeline forward based on the board's action in 17. But the reason we're bringing this back is to clarify for districts the expectation that these options be available to students.
Thing that we wanted to make clear too, which is in the wording, is that we wanted to ensure that any child who is currently in school, be they a 10th grader, 11th grader, senior, who meets the requirements of the endorsement, even though their district may not have been doing that currently, would qualify for the endorsement and be able to get the endorsement in their district. So we wanted to make that clear. It's not just the rising 9th graders, but it's anybody else that meets the endorsement requirements. And you've got a lot of kids that are doing that. You know, I had a conversation with somebody and I said, you know, if I was a parent that was sitting here with a senior and looking at all these qualifications for endorsements and my kid met it and it wasn't a shall but a may, then my kid's then thrown in having to go through all the whole hassle of being admitted to a university when they shouldn't be. Yeah.
Options and the timeline of creating those options for them, you know, at the same time. And I can understand parents being upset because their children didn't have the same options as other children throughout the state because of decisions, you know, along the way. That weighed against educating them well, 8th graders, in terms of tracks. And I won't say that can't be done in another time frame. But I just know that with our district, we started the spring before, met with all 8th graders, had parent meetings, and designed it differently. And I just know these implemented in 1 year, there's no way you can do that. You just have to go jump on board and react to what you have and create the options along the way.
Out of curiosity, as our new student board member, what's your thoughts on this?
be honest, I don't really understand what you guys are talking about.
That's fair and honest.
Yeah, but if I knew, then I would have a good opinion, I'm pretty sure.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just
No,
know
it's
that you're a senior and, you know, having the ability, I guess, to have an automatic admission if you had met certain requirements rather than having to go through an admission process.
Automatic admission into college?
Into college, because that's what we're talking about. The children that get these endorsements, that earn these credits and meet the requirements, certain GPA, will be automatically admitted to any of the universities in our state.
Okay. I don't understand why, like, a school district wouldn't want to give
They do
that
that.
option. I would certainly want that if that was an option.
Did understand that.
Thank you.
I have a question. Why, I can identify somewhat with you, Cheryl, but I mean, I understand what we're talking about. Why is it you called it out? Why did you ask that the consent item, whatever it is, be pulled out? D? I mean, what's the background that you said we need to bring this forward for discussion? I mean, it just, from what Dr. Wright said, it seems like, yeah, but you had
How I present
other
calls
reasons.
within the district, the earning educators, graders, present ninth graders, about all those diploma options and the track and moving schedules around. And again, you weigh that against doing it in time and saying, listen, we're going to go ahead and create those options for you along the way, but there's a lot of education that has to take place in the process if you hadn't already done that, and obviously they may not have. So that would be the reason that I would bring it off, is that there's some concern out there with districts that they wouldn't be able to educate them as well as they've been educated in the past. And we can debate the who should have done, and probably, you know, and they should have. But at the end of the day, you got students out there that I was afraid were going to be have a lesser advantage or lesser options and lesser education about their career paths along the way. So
Not doing it at all.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Right now, they don't have anything.
Oh, I mean, if they have to double time or if they're behind the 8 ball,
that's the discussion.
that's
you know.
their problem, because they should have been offering this anyway, because it says you may do it, so they should have been doing it just because it gives kids an advantage. I mean,
So my takeaway from that would be, yes, we want to change it to shall, but that MDE not bring the sword down on them the first year.
Well, we don't
have it all rolled out.
Yeah.
You're at fault.
Yeah. And no. And our point is just strictly to make sure the children have that advantage. We aren't the ones, we're not the enforcers, unless we would go out and audit a school district and they simply weren't doing it. But this only came to our attention because of the number of calls we started getting. So, I mean, we just made the assumption everybody was doing it.
Particularly for freshmen, there's a lot of commonalities. If I'm on a traditional diploma or a distinguished or a CTE or an academic, if I'm going to take Algebra 1, I'm going to take English 1, I'm going to take biology, I'm going to take some general courses that most freshmen and sophomores will take depending on how my schedule is set up. It's really as you move through high school that you dig more into the career tech coursework, you dig more into some of the advanced placement, dual credit opportunities, that lead you down the path to add those endorsements on that would lead to automatic admission.
One exception to that may be the CTE endorsement, where they do start taking them in the 9th grade and 10th grade and have to have a pathway for that CTE endorsement. That's a little bit different from other endorsements. No. That's right.
So, Mr. Bailey, I guess I'm trying to understand what you're saying. Are you saying that because of the time frame of us saying that now I understand the wording part of it, but school districts may now have to look at redoing a whole master schedule for high schools and looking at maybe teacher units that they have? I just want to make sure I understand exactly how
that would be their concern. I'm like, and I don't know that people will have to. I think they will start defining them in tracks and putting them in tracks anyhow. But the concern that would be relayed to us was, look, we've already done this master schedule and we got people locked in, and now we're about to have to redo master schedules. And I don't know that you would have to completely do that. I think you could define some tracks for them and move some people around. Now, will there have to be some movement? Probably so. As you educate your students about the options that they have, as Nathan says, there are many commonalities among the classes in the ninth grade. There are a few exceptions to that in terms of CTE that you start lining up earlier on along the way. So it doesn't mean that you can't overcome the lack of education in terms of those tracks or those options, but it means it's more difficult to do because of lack of education on the front end.
Why wouldn't, and you may or may not know the answer to this, but why wouldn't a school district have already pulled the trigger on this when the policy was first passed? Why wouldn't they have made that available to the student body at that time? Yeah.
It was a great option for our school district, and we presented in
I would think it would be a great option for any school district.
Yeah, sir, please.
Only public comment we received.
But then that tells me, obviously, it's not a huge issue out there with most schools. I mean, you would have been flooded, I would think, with opposition had it been a big issue.
I was just going to say, based on the comments that we're hearing and discussing today, that I don't have a problem with the shall. And the reason I say that is you're not going to probably have every school district 100% perfect this first year anyway, regardless, I don't think, right? There's already districts doing it, some not. But I think if we say shall, we'll get everyone on board. And I think by the time we get to next year and do it, I think this will be a non-issue. I think it's going to be the exception, not the rule, based on the feedback that we're hearing, that people will have a problem with it.
Bottom line thing, this is an advantage for students.
Yeah.
That's what we're about, is providing students opportunities. So why wouldn't we do that? You know,
I don't have a problem with the
concerns were certainly worthy of the discussion.
Oh yeah.
And,
It was.
Absolutely.
we all understand
Absolutely.
it now.
Yep, absolutely.
What's on the table right now is item 10, and it's approval to revise process standard 14.1. Do I have a motion to?
Yeah, I so move.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Now we're to consent agenda. Under consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve items A, B, C, E, F, and G?
So moved.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that the board consider making a closed determination.
Second?
Favor?
Aye.
Session at the time. session. The board approved the appointment of Michelle Taylor to the Ed Bureau Director 2 to serve as principal for the Mississippi School for the Deaf. The board also approved Ms. Courtney Van Cleve, the Ed Bureau Director 2 to serve as Director of Innovative Programs in the Office of Teaching and Leading. Congratulations. Do we have any reports on meetings attended?
Continental Tire, who told, well, first of all, the first group told what they did and what opportunities they offered for training, and then Continental Tire did a program on what they were looking for, and then in the afternoon, a representative from Hines Community College, one from Dr. Harden, who did presentations on everything from what they offered, programs, coursework, and what they were, the training that was available, as well as the lady who teaches career and technical education in terms of placing students in jobs. And it was very informative and very good. It was very well attended. I'd say there were 50 people there. And then Secretary Hoseman he was a keynote speaker at lunch, and he does this survey, this business survey every year of the businesses around the state and what they're looking for. So he shared all of his data, and as I said, it was just very informative, and I think a lot of good information was shared, and there were a lot of things. A lot of discussion about work keys and the value of work keys, and so anyway, it was good. I enjoyed it. One of the gentlemen statement that he had been working with Ingalls, and if they could use 200 welders today, if they could find 200 welders they could employ, who were certified, qualified, that they could employ all of them.
Speaking of Ingalls, they are opening up an Ingalls Shipbuilding Academy at one of the schools in Gulfport School District.
Ah, awesome.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
Oh, you had something. So our person oversees CT, I think, has something she wants to say. That's great. That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
I also attended a meeting. It was the Diverse and Learner Ready Teachers Initiative that Mr. Moss and Dr. Murphy have been participating in, and myself have been participating in the last 18 months. And I won't go into details because you'll be hearing more and more about the output of this particular group. I'll just say that we were, it was very lovely of Dr. Coleman, Benita, hosted the meeting in Ocean Springs and provided us with a delightful pre-meeting evening affair.
I don't.
He's a regular,
I,
ain't he,
I,
Bob?
I don't need to get on another airplane.
Okay, at this time, we will entertain election of chair and vice chair. This time, I'll open the floor for nominations for the board's chair for the 1920 term.
Chairman, I would offer the nomination of Dr. Jason Dean. Aye.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
This time, I open the floor for nomination of the board's vice chair. Have nominations?
One.
I would like to nominate Mr. Eddie Bailey for the vice chair.
Second that.
Can we vote now? Vote. No,
Call the vote.
Call the vote, please.
So we'll close those nominations.
Aye.
Next item is approval to change the previous approved State Board of Education meeting date of September 19th to September 12th.
So that is the date that we issue our accountability results. Thank you for reminding me, just so you know, that's an important meeting. Looking it up.
From September 19th to September 12th.
Aye.
$1:30. Look at that, Dr.